Very good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the Tuesday, the 1st of July edition of Vogan's European Outlook. We certainly have got a big contrast in temperature, not just for the UK, but also even for England. During the course of last night, we've seen temperatures drop to 4.9 Celsius, a fairly cool, fresh 4.9 at Tulloch Bridge in Furset. And down to the west of London, we had a 22.2 Celsius this morning, so much of Greater London recorded a tropical night during the course of last night. But you can see the contrast between single figures across the north and high teens, low 20s across the south of the UK. In terms of the current temperatures then, we have got big contrasts, like I say, across the UK and Ireland. Only teens widely across the bulk of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Also, the northern half of England, we've only got 13, 14, 15 Celsius in the north of England, while we're talking about temperatures into the low, even mid-30s around the southeast corner of the UK. Now, the reasons why we've got this big contrast between teens in the north and low to mid-30s in the south is thanks to a frontal system that is dropping southwards here, shrinking that area of heat. We are going to see a big drop in temperature. 30s today, low 20s tomorrow. So a good 10 Celsius drop in temperatures between this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon across the southeast. But we do have quite a thick bank of cloud cover across much of Wales, much of northern England, and into southern and eastern Scotland here. Something a little bit sunnier now starting to appear across the northwest. And basically underneath that thick cloud, we are talking about some fairly cool temperatures for the 1st of July. You can see here very clear skies across the bulk of Europe here. We've got some thunderstorms developing over central Iberia, over the Pyrenees, into parts of southeastern France, over the Alps, parts of the high elevations of Italy, into the Balkan region as well. But generally speaking, we've got very clear skies. And underneath that, we have got a lot of heat to speak about this afternoon. So, like I said, these are the temperatures across the UK and Ireland at the moment here. This is a far cry from 2015. The 1st of July 2015 saw some very hot temperatures. In fact, slightly hotter than what we've got today across the southeast. But the big difference between the 1st of July 2015 and 2025 is the fact that we've got temperatures that were into the upper 30s in the southeast, anywhere really from parts of southern Lincolnshire down towards Sussex and Kent. But back then we had a high of 29. The heat was basically UK wide back then, with 28 up in Altnahara, 29 in Aviemore, and upper 20s in the south of Scotland, and then generally the 30s were extensive all the way up to Carlisle. Whereas obviously this time around the heat is very much concentrated in a relatively small area. Obviously the most populated part of the UK, but that being said, many areas today probably saying what's all the fuss about with regards to the heat. So that's that. I wanted to show you a few interesting things here. Let's have a quick look at the radar to see if there's much in the way of precipitation aboard that boundary that is dropping southeast. We do have some rain to speak about across the north of England, southeastern Scotland, some heavier pulses within that band itself. But we did see a significant soaking across the western and northern areas of the UK during the course of last night. That also helped alleviate the fires that have been erupting around the central Highland region during the course of yesterday and back during the weekend. Very powerful winds coming in out of the west, right in the northern periphery of the high, in combination with barbecues that have been abandoned, not extinguished properly, led to a lot of wildfires around central Highland. To the south of Inverness in particular, we've seen some very thick smoke. This was the scene that I captured south on the A9 last evening, sitting in the passenger seat and you could hardly see anything. Closing the windows, obviously very poor air quality around the Car Bridge, Aviemore area and adjacent areas as well. But certainly it's the thickest smoke that I have seen on the road in certainly this country anyway. And it certainly led to some fairly poor air quality and visibility issues as well. So, that was yesterday. Thankfully, the rains during the overnight period has alleviated that fire situation today. But unfortunately, the outlook is still looking rather dry. But you can see here, let's have a quick look at the temperatures across the continent then, and we can see what kind of temperatures we're talking about. We've got low teens in parts of Western Russia, while we've got temperatures in the upper 30s across the near continent. Upper 30s widespread across France, with even a 40 in south central France, but the 36, 37, 38 Celsius all the way up through the Paris area and into Belgium and the Netherlands. We're talking about temperatures knocking the door of 38 to 40 Celsius this afternoon, widespread upper 30s across the west of Germany as well. So we're talking about generally 10, 12 Celsius above average across Iberia, France, Low Countries, Western Germany, but they equally so 10 to 12 Celsius below average over western areas of Russia. So a very, very big contrast across the continent this afternoon, and this can be clearly shown on this GFS temperature anomaly chart for Europe this afternoon. So, some interesting contrast to speak about. I also wanted to talk about the fact that this was England's warmest June on record. So this is obviously a new publication from the Met Office showing that England recorded its warmest June on record, and UK's second warmest since 1884. The only June to beat that is 2 years ago, back in June 2023. So I'll very quickly touch on this here. England had its warmest June on record, while the UK experienced its second since the series back to 1884. This follows the record-breaking spring, which was officially the warmest and sunniest on record for the UK. June continued that trend, marked by 2 heat waves and some high temperatures to see off the month. Now remember what the June outlook was: cooler, wetter north, warmer, drier south, with a potential for some significant heat moving up from the near continent. That has materialised, so I think overall, give or take a couple of little discrepancies, I think the June forecast played out pretty well. So the first month of meteorological summer has been relatively successful from my point of view anyway. But according to provisional data, the UK's mean temperature of 15.2 for June was the second highest on record for the month, only surpassed by June 2023, which was 15.8 Celsius. For England, recorded its warmest on record with a mean temperature of 16.9, while Wales experienced its third warmest June since the series back to 1884. So the east and the southeast of England especially saw the most pronounced warmth, with East Anglia's mean temperature 3 above the long-term meteorological average for June. And these are the temperature anomalies, the mean anomaly for the UK as a whole, and pretty much all of the UK is warmer than average, give or take a little area around Skye and Lochaber and also the southwest of Scotland. But you can see here plus 2.5 above average, really anywhere from the south central across the end of the Thames estuary all the way up into parts of far southern Northumberland. In terms of the heatwave duration, no heatwave really to speak about across Scotland. A couple of pockets in northwestern and northern Ireland, but generally speaking, Scotland lost out on that. This was the first heatwave back through the 16th and the 21st. Then the one that we're just about to end, 27th through the 30th of June. Again, Northern Ireland, Scotland, even the far north of England did not reach heatwave criteria. So unfortunately for us up here in the north of the UK, we've missed out again on any appreciable warmth. So yeah, like I say, I'm going to kind of skip through this. In terms of rainfall, just above average for the UK, but with regional variation. Rainfall across the UK concluded just above average, so 103% of the average, but the regional differences were evident. Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland saw at least 20% more rainfall than average, with England the only nation recording less, receiving only 80%. And obviously we've got this ongoing very dry situation across the south, which means into the month of July, remain concerned about heat rebuilding. Yes, we are going to see a deflation in the high. We're going to see more northwesterly flow. But generally speaking, we've got a relatively dry outlook through at least the first half of July. And I think there's a possibility of this high re-establishing itself back into at least the southern UK, so England and Wales, as we progress towards mid and late month. That is the ideas that I've got anyway. A coolish start, especially across more northern areas of England and Scotland, Northern Ireland as well. I think we are going to get some fairly cool early July days, but I think the pattern will eventually shift. So regionally, Orkney experienced its wettest June since records began in 1836, which is an interesting one. That's kind of surprised me. And Cumbria, its fourth. Honister Pass in the Lake District fells recorded 499.4 millimetres of rain for the month, compared to 20 millimetres or less in the driest areas of eastern England. So that's interesting. We've recorded essentially 500 millimetres of rain in Cumbria, while parts of the east of England recorded only 20 millimetres of rain. That's a massive contrast, isn't it, between northwest and east of England. So obviously in terms of sunshine duration, it was duller than normal across western Scotland. It was sunnier than average across the east. Much of England was sunnier than average, with exceptions of around average in Cumbria. Much of Wales was average to slightly below average in terms of sunshine, and also the southwest of England as well. So interesting stats coming out with regards to June for the UK. That will get built into the July outlook. I always like to throw in the month just gone stats, as well as the extremes that have taken place during the course of that previous month for the UK, Ireland, as well as Europe and the world. In terms of the CFSV2 mean temperature anomalies then for the upcoming 7 days, you can see here much of the north and west of the UK is cooler than average for the next 7 days. So this takes out to the 8th of July. Again, the majority of Europe, Central and Southern Europe, is warmer than average. Into week 2, you can see here, remains with a cool north, warm south across the UK. Warmer again across the near continent down into Iberia. Iberia seeing the warmest compared to average across the continent in week 2. Week 3, we're starting to see something slightly warmer building in. So this is the 15th through the 22nd. Week 4 is firmly warmer than average. Now, let's have a look at the precipitation of the model then and see what it's looking like. Now, we do have the potential of thunderstorms erupting across parts of southeastern UK as systems move in, replacing the heat with something fresher from the Atlantic. You can see here slightly wet than average across the north of Iberia into the Alpine region, but generally speaking, drier across eastern France through Germany, Poland, into east and southeast Europe. Into week 2, you can see here we have a dry signal showing up. Week 3, dry. Week 4, dry as well. This takes us all the way to the 29th of July, which is interesting stuff, given the fact that we have got ongoing drought worsening across mainland Europe. And in terms of the upper heights then, you can see that this is the upcoming 7 days. We do have the core of the ridge now, 2 cores actually, one over the open Atlantic, which creates a northwesterly component, introducing something fresher from the northwest. Another core of high pressure heat now then starting to refocus over eastern areas of Europe, Central and Eastern Europe to be exact. Into week 2, you can see here the high trying to re-exert its influence back into the UK and Ireland. Never too far away is the jet and the trough from the northern half of the British Isles here. So we'll watch this going forward, and then into week 3 and week 4, you can see here that high coming back into play once again. So that is quite interesting to see this evolution of the pattern. I wanted to also show you one last thing, and talk a little bit about how this high became established over western areas of Europe here. And this is from Extreme Medio, talking about a little bit more about the dynamics, the overall kind of global drivers that have triggered this heat dome in the first place. So I want to just share this briefly with you here. The process of forming a heat dome like the one we are experiencing originates from the circulation of a Rossby wave with an AWM, or an anticyclonic Rossby wave break, leading to an anticyclonic amplification over western areas of Europe. So this wave break scenario, these waves that kind of propagate from west to east throughout the northern hemisphere, triggered somewhat by forcing over the Indo-Pacific region. This kind of eventually what happens is the ball starts to move in motion over the opposite side of the world, and as that ball then starts to rip through the atmosphere, it creates this Rossby wave break scenario here, creating the anticyclonic amplification over Western Europe here. The heat dome is fueled by a circulation of a strong jet to its north with visible divergent points over the Atlantic and Northern Europe. That feeds this heat dome. This is the well-known bicycle pump effect, with air compression via upper-level divergence, resulting in formation of high geopotential height. So it's essentially the air getting forced across the Atlantic, then piling up and forcing the pressure to build within the ridge scenario. So you've got this trough developing over the North Atlantic, then that pumps the high downstream of that, forces the jet stream further north. We've got a very powerful jet around the northern periphery of the high, hence why we had very strong gusty winds across the northern UK during the course of the weekend. So the second map shows the IVT. So let's go to the first chart. So you can see here the what's going on here in terms of the upper divergence, and then the sinking motion downstream of that. So we've got strong upper level divergence over the Atlantic. That results then in the air then getting forced from the top of the troposphere out, expanding out the way, upper level divergence, and then it has to come down somewhere else. And what's doing is it's coming down over this upper level ridge of high pressure parked over western areas of Europe. So you can see here the second map shows the IVT in this chart here, I believe. Yeah, this is it here. And that is the transport of precipitable water vapor in the atmosphere, which is significant, mirroring the shape of the heat dome. All this humid heat contributes to feeding the high geopotential heights. Moreover, significant rainfall accumulations are expected in the coming days in Scandinavia, particularly along the Norwegian coast. So we've had obviously the jet further north. That's been driving weather systems into Scandinavia, even across parts of western Scotland, for example. But further south, we've had this strong compression of air underneath the heat dome and the high pressure system itself. So particularly along the Norwegian coast, with the circulation of an atmospheric river fueled by subtropical air. So the third map shows the anomaly of the jet stream at 250 HPA, reaching 4 sigma, which means the jet stream is significantly intensified for the late June period. This contributes to ensuring a certain persistence of this anticyclonic high pressure system. So stronger than average jet, lots of air getting rushed into a given area. That then forces the pressure to build, and we see this very powerful ridge develop over Europe. Now, another interesting piece here by Franz, saying that the subtropical ridge appears to be a response to the convective forcing of the boreal summer ISO. The burst over the India Bay of Bengal region, phase 3 and 4, the MJO, about a week ago launched a vorticity packet that, ascending along the subtropical jet, inflated the ridge. So this is quite technical stuff, and even for myself, I'm trying to get my head around some of the mechanics behind this. But generally speaking, what's happened is a phase 3 for the MJO forcing taking place in this part of the world, then created a ripple effect across the northern hemisphere, leading to this scenario unfolding across the Atlantic and then across Europe. We are going to see a change in this taking place as we move into the coming days here, as already alluded to. But it'll be interesting to see with the drought situation across Europe, very warm sea surface temperatures within the Mediterranean and over the northeast Atlantic. Do we see this pattern returning once again during the month of July? That is going to be the big golden question. So we'll watch this space going forward. Certainly very interesting things going on. We'll keep an eye on it. But certainly the current temperatures, let's have a very quick brief look at and see what the actual temperatures are currently across the southeast. Have we exceeded 34 Celsius? That's going to be the golden question. If we look at France, and you can see here that we do have plenty of heat in the Low Countries. It looks like we've got 37 over parts of Belgium, 34 in the Netherlands here, and then into the southeast of the UK, we've got a temperature of 33.6 at St James's Park. Do we have anything above that? I'm not so sure. So yeah, it looks as if we've got 33, 34 in and around the Greater London area. We've got Southend-on-Sea at 34 currently. Down towards the Paris area, we're talking about 37.6 at Mount Sorus. That is the main site for the Paris area. Paris Saint-Germain is talking 37.4. Then we've got a few 38s showing up here in and around the greater Paris area. So very hot weather indeed. We've got 37.6 in southern portions of Belgium at the moment as well. Big contrast as well between low 20s in the northwest versus upper 30s around the Paris area this afternoon. So that is it for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing here in the channel. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.